This show furnished by Karl Gerber and Employment Lawyers Group.
Talk Radio 790 KABC. I'm Karl Gerber, and this is the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. Boredom and death are inevitable parts of life, but what do you want to do? Do you want to go down dying of boredom in the workplace? Come on, wouldn't you rather have your relatives talk about you dying of a massive heart attack? Not a little itty-bitty heart failure, but an epic myocardial infarction. One that causes your heart to explode, rip through your chest cavity, and fire into the goggled lenses of your heart surgeon. Can an employee really die of boredom? Tonight I have with me a lady who I'm going to start asking questions because I don't want to get too bored. Well, why are you here?
Mr. Gerber, we sought you out because on this show you have demonstrated a keen ability to deal with most unusual, if not ludicrous, lies and idiotic issues in labor law.
I thought maybe you begged for my legal advice because the signs all over Lawndale claim I'm an expert on employee rights.
You did sort of land on my lap. Actually, the hood of my Reliant, Robin.
How is this any more normal than a cosplay ostrich ranch run by a retired adult actor who made his fortune off his infringed genital? What happened? You misjudged a turn while driving a three-wheel vehicle from the 70s?
I can right the machine on the front wheel if I lean forward like this.
Oh, we're going to have to do the rest of this episode standing. This lady, she toppled over the whole console.
Sorry.
Weird woman who drives a three-wheel vehicle, probably lime green, whatever your name is. How did I land on your lap? I got 10 emails from you claiming you had a sui generis legal issue I'd be interested in.
One morning, I was in Lawndale on my way to a workplace investigation in Torrance when an old Dodge van, white wall tires, comes out of nowhere. This super creepy coyote with an evil grin on his face charges his van straight in my direction. Bam! The third or fifth most seen billboard in the country comes toppling down onto the roof of my... Yes! Lime green, weird, three-wheel French vehicle from the 70s. The rest of the digital billboard spazzes out and dies, but not the picture of you in the blue suit with red, white, and blue tie, trying to look all normal like you don't write this bizarre trash every week and subject a small percent of the 11 million radio listeners that hear this signal to this abuse.
Now that you got all that out of your system, could we discuss the alleged novel workplace legal issue you have for me?
Yes, I am Molly Machete. I am a workplace investigator. I don't carry a hatchet. I don't terminate people. I make independent findings of fact, interview witnesses, and write reports.
Don't tell me you're a psychiatrist like the one who interviewed witnesses and conducted the investigation of the man in episode 10 who claimed a bigwig at his company caused the whole world to believe he was the effigy of a typical gay man and his picture was on TV and all.
Certainly not. That investigation was purely irresponsible. No neutrality at all, and quite an absurd conclusion. The man did not suffer from any mental illnesses. Don't tell anybody. But Condoleezza Rice trained me in interrogation.
Oh, brother. He's Georg.
Jorg or Georg?
We can't get into that right now.
Why?
I've worked with the United States Attorney's Office on federal false claims.
Big deal. It's no secret you filed a few qui-tam actions, trying to be a big hero and get your client a cut for exposing a federal false claim. You haven't spent 9 long, wet months in a bay in Cuba.
Whoa, I'm not scared of her. After doing last week's episode, I carried a 250-pound water heater downstairs into alley behind my Sherman Oaks office. Brown, slimy water, the texture of birth was trailing everywhere.
Who do you think was in the moss-colored SZD parked in the back of that fancy restaurant in the next parking lot?
Probably the Dom from that episode of this show who sexually harassed the robot. I was too engaged in my near midnight cleaning up the spew from the water heater.
Can we talk serious?
Please.
We've been joking around, waterboarding, scum-spewing water heaters, but the reason why I am here is most serious.
We can be serious, but there's no way I'm going to let you bore the audience.
Boredom is a very real epidemic.
I agree. I've been tortured.
Let's not go back there.
Yeah, let's talk some serious employment law to satisfy the listeners who are just dying to learn the nuances of how to sue their employer or how to screw their employees without being sued.
I investigated a workplace death.
Big deal. I've investigated workplace rapes, terrible case of discrimination, workplace torture, sub-minimum wage, slavery of caregivers living on towels in a 6-bed group home. I represented a gay black hairstylist who was shot to death at a LA traffic stop.
The situation I am bringing to you now involves a workplace death.
Oh, I thought you were just trying to one-up me. We better figure this one out. No more jokes.
I have my report with me, but I want to tell you a lot about the situation first, so you'll be bored reading the report and maybe skip through a lot of it because grammar's not my forte.
Please go ahead. On a matter like this, there's not too much information I can have. Somebody died in the workplace, right?
Yes, this is a workplace death case. Actually, this is the first workplace death I've ever had to investigate. The cause of death is so unusual. Given the cause of death and the seriousness of this issue, I realized I needed to consult an expert on workers' rights.
How did the worker die? Was this an industrial accident?
You could say industrial accident.
A factory accident.
The way they treated their employees was pure factory mentality, but this was an office environment.
This is very unusual because the biggest category of workplace deaths are construction accidents.
So tragic. Such a young girl, bored to death at work.
You're saying the girl's spirit died. Is this a work stress claim, not really a workplace death?
There's a pathology report. They are pretty certain she died of boredom. You know, a dull work environment.
I always suspected something like this would happen sooner or later.
There were signs. Witnesses said she was observed pouring coffee and warm water onto her tongue to achieve a basic human tactile sensation to make sure she was alive.
Who observed these signs?
Levels of task managers 1.02 through 3.12.
A decimal point for me. What kind of workplace was this anyways?
Office environment.
Molly, can you be more specific or I might get bored to death?
The company the subject worked for are specialists of mundane and tedious tasks.
Do you know what kind of work they actually do?
I'd rather not go into it.
Why?
Boredom.
I see.
However, given the seriousness of the situation, I will tell you. Slap yourself on the face or something to stay alive.
Ow! Maybe this is not appropriate for live radio.
I have sincere concerns we will bore your audience.
Thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
I saw something about that in the report.
Huh?
Okay, brace yourselves. XI0415.
Are you talking about a cosplay robot?
I wish I were. Thank you for adding something more interesting to this. I was concerned. XI0415 is the name of the corporation at issue.
Even the name is boring and nondescript. What does it stand for?
Nothing. My investigation revealed the intent of the company was to brand itself as a monolithic corporation that would take tasks typically difficult to staff due to their mechanized nature.
You're listening to the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. I'm Karl Gerber. This is, of course, Talk Radio 790 KABC. Please call me off air about a real workplace case at 877-525-0700. Once again, that's 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. And when we come back, I really kind of want to find out how in the world somebody could be bored to death at work. That sounds a bit novel for me. Wow. I really would like to know, and I think a lot of people would like to know why and how somebody could be bored to death at work. We will figure that out.
When the need for senior care arises, there's no place like home. Your loved ones should never have to give up living at home. Visiting Angels will provide home care for your mom or dad at home up to 24 hours per day, including personal care, meals, and light housework. You'll select your professional caregiver with Visiting Angels. Look up visitingangels.com or call 877-374-LIVE. That's 877-374-LIVE. Franchises are available. Visiting Angels, America's choice in senior home care.
If you wear a denture, are you sure your breath is clean and fresh? Try Polident. It's specifically designed to clean a denture because it's tough on odor-causing bacteria, but gentle on the denture itself. Polident has a 4-in-1 cleaning system with 4 powerful ingredients that work together to deep clean your denture. It kills 99.99% of odor-causing bacteria in laboratory testing and helps to remove stains. Feel confident and clean every day with Polident. Available at Walmart for a low price every day.
The Online Trading Academy is a leader in investing education designed to generate monthly income and grow your retirement nest egg. Today, you can register for a free half-day class at one of OTA's financial education centers throughout Southern California, including Woodland Hills, Westwood, and Irvine, offered conveniently around your schedule. I'm so impressed with the Online Trading Academy that I've signed up for my own class, and you can too. Give them a call at 888-991-TRADE. That's 888-991-8723 to attend and get 2 free passes to their next half-day class so you can check all of it out. And if you call right now, they'll send you home with a free Kindle Fire 7 tablet computer with access to their do-it-yourself investors kit just for attending. It's loaded with exclusive investing courses and some of their best lessons from the pros. This is a limited time opportunity and seats go fast, so call right now. 888-991-TRADE, 888-991-TRADE, or visit them online at freetabletota.com. That's freetabletota.com. Tablet offers while supplies last, must be 18 years of age or older, and 1 tablet per household.
This show furnished by Karl Gerber and Employment Lawyers Group.
Talk radio again, 790 KABC. You're listening to the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, and this particular segment is sponsored by nobody. Before we broke, we were talking to a third-party workplace investigator about a case of someone who was bored to death, and I got to get back to it. I want to know, what was the subject's job?
Reviewing already entered computations concerning hours worked by warehouse employees, how many boxes they moved by second, minute, hour, and fortnight, coding non-graphic images on gray or white screens, not any screens with background colors like you have on the workplacelawyer.org site, where old episodes of the show can be heard. There's more, but I suspect it would put you to sleep.
The wage and hour cases my office does. It requires a lot of analysis of time cards. We have to recalculate how many hours the employees worked, at what point in the shift they work more than 8 hours for overtime, more than 12 for double time, whether they worked enough hours to be eligible for a meal break, and if one was taken before they started their 6-hour work. We have to make sure rest breaks were received before and after the meal break. Then there's all sorts of comparison charts based on the employer's pay stubs, lack thereof, reports that show when the employee's
Mr.
vehicles were
Gerber,
moving.
can I say something? You're boring me.
Taking on wage and hour cases takes a lot of patience. It can bore some people. It isn't as sexy as whistleblower lawsuits on matters of safety or a disputed sexual harassment lawsuit involving a sexual harasser who appears to be lying.
Get ready, because there's more. Don't have a cup of machine-brewed coffee. Think about a caramel drizzle grande iced sugar-free vanilla latte with half soy and half non-fat milk with Rubicons on the side, chai non, high-medium gel-based truffles, macrobiotic.
I hate having to listen to those complex coffee orders whenever I'm on a complex action case in a Century City office tower.
The air conditioning at XI0415 was static. No change in temperature during a 24-hour period. Every cubicle was powder gray, all chairs the same color, dull-looking gray monitors without sound features. There were not any telephone handsets for dialing. There was a hole in the cubicle wall, obviously a gray grill on top, so not even the hole was visible. From the grill, equanimous sounds emanated, always in a monotone fashion. Employees sat next to and were surrounded by employees who spoke a different language in order to prohibit workplace chatter. All employees wore white shirts and gray pants.
This sounds like a dreadful workplace environment.
It was, and there's more. They made all of their employees waive their meal breaks on the basis there was a business necessity in having them work straight through, because if they stopped working on rote tasks, their train of thought would be interrupted by outside influences.
I guess if you get into a real monotonous run, it's hard to get back and do painfully dull work if you've seen sunshine. But seriously, I haven't heard a valid business necessity here for meal breaks to be waived. Somebody should bring a class action for unpaid and denied meal breaks.
Good point. Good point.
Can we liven this up with the subject's name?
Hinata Orchid Helms.
Helms. We've got a problem.
Are you detecting a certain familial relationship?
I am, but I also know a little Japanese here and there. Hinata means best sunlight. We have the wrong person in the wrong work environment.
Precisely. One of the conclusions in my report.
Were you able to find out why a possible descendant or relative of the most important man in Sun Valley would be engaged in such a dreadfully dull job?
The root of the problem is California Labor Code Section 432.3.
I discussed that 2018 legislative amendment once on this show. Even though I'm an employee lawyer, I'm not a fan of it. It prohibits employers from asking applicants for their salary histories because it is thought that women who have been historically underpaid will end up being underpaid at their next new job because of their past salary.
The only reason Hinata Orchid Helms took the job at XI0415 was because a previous job she took did not work out. She was desperate.
Might there be a case against a prior employer?
That is one of the reasons why I'm here.
I thought you were a neutral investigator.
No comment.
I won't ask what that's supposed to mean.
Hinata Orchid Helms was a beautiful young woman. This is her picture.
I see some family resemblance there. She's quite exotic looking. She looks slightly Japanese, but has bluish eyes.
Her mother was a Japanese Nuru nurse. Her father, I think you can conclude who he was. I believe the Helms brothers have a twinge of African in their lineage.
I presume her father is Rhemus Helms.
Tests have never been run to confirm that fact, but he always treated Hinata as his daughter.
How does Labor Code 232.3 relate to this case?
Hinata was obviously a talented artist.
Is it possible Demas was really her father?
For a variety of reasons, including preference, I do not believe that's accurate.
Maybe the artistic genes run in the family.
Hinata had certain math skills that enabled her to obtain the job at XI0415. The position was obviously not her preference, but her previous job termination led to disastrous consequences for her.
What was the previous job?
I'm getting there. Hinata was a chemistry major. She was able to duplicate quite interesting, pleasing olfactory scents.
Was her previous employment as a chemist?
Not exactly. She was hired at a very high salary because the employer was not able to legally ask what her previous salary was. The job she was recruited from mostly involved creating olfactory odors reminiscent of ultra-exciting events in the human experience.
Can you be more specific what these ultra-exciting events were?
The scents Hinata created brought on sexual sensations.
This confirms her biological relationship to Rhemus Helms.
Unquestionably, in my opinion.
Why couldn't she make money creating those olfactory whatevers? Why work at XI0415?
Hinata's roommate encouraged her to take a certain job that did not work out.
Roommate?
Yes. Her roommate is a wannabe candle designer.
I think I'm getting the picture now.
I believe you are.
Would the roommate happen to be Starlight?
You're a quick study. Hinata earned $50,000 a year at the employer prior to the novelty toy company. Starlight earned $15 an hour. She claimed she was hired to design candles at $19 an hour, but the employer claimed she was hired as a paid intern at $15 an hour.
This explains a lot of things from last week's episode.
When Hinata was offered the $250,000 a year job at Nouvelle Vague Novelty Toys through a recruiter who misunderstood Hinata was not a physical designer of candles but of candle smells, Starlight concocted a plan that she would design the candles and Starlight would scent them. Hinata went along with the scheme.
Interesting. If this is true, Hinata had unclean hands.
She made sense with chemicals. She wasn't bottling the smell of sex and not washing her hands.
Oh boy, unclean hands means acting inequitably or unequitably.
Does that matter?
If Hinata had an equitable claim against Nouveau Vague, the defense would have been she was never qualified for the job in the first place. Promissory estoppel stops one side from denying the existence of the promise if to do so would be inequitable. Had Hinata sued for promissory estoppel, she would have been confronted with this problem. I would say that she'd been able to ask, the employer was able to ask about the salary. Perhaps, this Nouveau Vague would have realized that Hinata wasn't cut out for a $250,000 job directing a new division. It sounds like she had a keen sense of smell, but did not have experience managing others and misrepresented her ability to artistically design candles.
I need your guidance on whether Hinata's heirs should sue.
Would this involve aiding, advising, or abetting Rhemus Helms to file a lawsuit? As I said several times on this show, there's a conflict of interest in me representing one fictional character against another fictional character or fictional business entities I dream up.
I need to tell you more about Hinata's situation.
How exactly did Hinata die? Was it witnessed?
Hinata was cross-checking to make sure electronic dictation of binary code was correctly input. As a former modem stud, I presume you know what binary code is? All zeros and ones? No real variety. At any rate, employees at XI0415 were assigned the same task day in, day out for a random period of time before they might be switched to another mindless task if the work existed. Hinata was not feeling well. She spaced out a few times. Her vision was doubling on the zeros. She wanted to get up.
How do you know all this? Were there witnesses?
The problem is the witnesses could not understand what she was saying. None of them spoke English or Japanese.
I'm not getting how you know this.
The hole in the cubicle that emits monotonous voices, if need be, records everything that happens in the workplace.
Why?
No reason in particular, just to assert there's no privacy protection for an employee being recorded at work if the employee acknowledges that will happen. Well, I guess they want to make sure the employee isn't violating company policy like singing, listening to music, or streaming a video to break the monotony.
Do you know why Hinata was seeing double zeros?
We're going to have to consult the pathologist. He read all the medical reports. Before we do that, I want you to understand the factual circumstances relating to the death.
Yeah, I'd like to know how factually someone can die of boredom.
Hinata was not feeling well. She was mumbling a prayer about fishing, even trying out an accent. She noted the exit sign some 15 away from her cubicle. The sign shined a consistent LED green. It didn't even flicker. Very constant. She got up from her cubicle. She was feeling slightly less bored when she walked with one shoe. But there was not any artwork on the way to the exit sign. Absolutely no windows looking into reality. The only source of light were dim LED bulbs that conserved energy. She got to the exit. It would have led to a concrete stairwell, dull in appearance, but the mere act of moving could have saved her.
What happened? Did she get out?
The door to the stairway was blocked. There was no exit.
There was no exit?
The door to the stairwell was locked.
Oh, I thought this was all existential. It was really locked?
Seriously, this all happened just like I'm telling you.
This is macabre. I picture this descendant of Rhemus Helms, the most important man of Sun Valley, banging against a metal fire-retarded door, leading into a stairwell, grasping for breath, or at least ready to die of boredom. But she can't get out because the door was locked. She falls to the ground in a state of utter boredom. Oh, wait! We have to break! Wouldn't falling to the ground wake her up?
You'd
when we
think
come back,
so.
we're going to find out on the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show.
Talk Radio 790, KABC News Update. I'm Steve Cumming. The Unite the Right rally is over after a couple of dozen white nationalists were met by thousands of counter-protesters. Metropolitan Police Chief Peter Newsham.
There's no city better equipped to facilitate large-scale events than Washington, D.C. Today was an example of a well-executed plan to safeguard people and property while allowing individuals to exercise their First Amendment rights.
The only sign of trouble was a short skirmish between counter-protesters and police. The investigation continues into why a Horizon Air employee stole a plane and then crashed it, killing him. Correspondent Kyung La reports.
In talking to air traffic control, Russell did say he made reference to playing video games, but those officials who were at the news conference simply thought that couldn't be it and that they need to harden their security.
KABC SoCal weather mostly clear this evening with lows in the mid to upper 60s. More news coming up and continuous coverage on KABC.com. I'm Steve Cumming, Talk Radio 790 KABC News.
Since 1993, the Employment Lawyers Group has been a consistent force in fighting for the rights of California employees. They've represented thousands of employees in cases in which they've lost their jobs, been sexually harassed, discriminated against at work, or owed wages individually or as a group such as a class action. The Employment Lawyers Group has maintained a high win rate and a serious record before the California courts. Please call 877-525-0700 for an experienced work lawyer. That's 877-525-0700. They have call takers standing by. Online, research the firm at worklawyerca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. If you hire the Employment Lawyers Group, your legal problem becomes theirs to solve.
Allie's mom knew she had a strong kick even back in the womb. And from then on, Allie was always kicking a ball and saying she was going to play pro soccer. And one day, while she was kicking a ball against a wall, her skills drew even more attention. Her boss said, "Could you please stop that and get me those quarterly numbers I asked for?" Turns out Allie just wasn't that good at soccer. But she was a good accountant. That's why she switched to Geico. She knew they could save her a bunch of money on car insurance, and she sure wasn't ever going to make that pro soccer money. No, sir.
You know, as an allergy sufferer, you're wired differently.
I sure feel that way.
That's why there's Nasacort. It's different too. You see, unlike antihistamines, Nasacort targets and inhibits more of the allergic inflammation that causes ear congestion and other nasal allergy symptoms.
My antihistamine doesn't do that?
None of them do.
Oh, that is different.
And it's why Nasacort's more effective at giving you 24-hour relief.
So even if I'm wired differently,
Nasacort stops more of what makes you miserable. Use as directed.
Talk Radio 790 KABC. You're listening to the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. I'm Karl Gerber, and I'm really anxious to get back to this segment because we've got an employee who was bored to death in the workplace, wanted to get out, was trapped because the exit door wouldn't open and there was no exit. And we've got a third-party workplace investigator giving me this whole thing. Look, Molly, blocked exits causing a death are clearly an OSHA violation. There are multiple labor codes about employers having to supply their employees with safe and healthful working conditions. If they don't, there's an OSHA fine. Now, there's a way to bring PAGA, that's private attorney general charges against a company if they fail to furnish a safe work environment. I'm starting to bring cases against employers who have dangerous and unsafe conditions. I have one right now against an Amazon warehouse. The boxes are stacked quite high, all sorts of clutter, multiple clients injured due to these conditions. I have another with rodent infestation at an assisted living home. Another law firm got a judgment last year of $1 million thereabouts for these violations.
What about the other working conditions? Isn't willfully causing boredom illegal?
It should be, but unless we can establish some sort of precedent about employees dying of boredom, I'm not sure. There's another angle, though, for workers' comp. Blocking the safety exit most likely creates additional fines in workers' compensation or might allow for a personal injury claim. We've got to get a workers' comp specialist on the line.
Are you thinking we can get that Seth Krell from episode 13 on the show? He has a very nice voice.
I've got a direct line into him. I'm sure we can. He's always ready for a hot workers' compensation case. Oh, wow. I think we got Seth Krell, real workers' comp lawyer on the phone. Seth, if you're there, thanks for making yourself available on this Sunday evening. Hopefully we didn't pull you away from farmer's market fresh peas with honey. I know some people like to play the kazoo after a culinary experience like that. Are you there,
It's
Seth?
okay. I'm here. It's okay. I was listening to the show. I heard about this most unusual workplace death.
In the modern mechanized age, are you seeing a lot of bored in the workplace claims?
I can't say I have.
Seth, do you have any comments on this workplace death in which an employee allegedly died of boredom? Maybe she could have freed herself from the doldrums if the exit door to the stairs wasn't blocked.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. There are significant labor codes that prohibit this type of activity and punish employers for intentional conduct more than negligence. But when the employer is shown to have willfully intended to have caused an injury, and certainly if someone couldn't get out of a building because an employer knew that they had locked the stairs, then that would be the essence of an unsafe workplace.
Well, but what I really want to get to is, could the company be liable for willfully creating a boring work environment?
So a boring work environment, I think, is perhaps an inherent
occupational hazard.
For some jobs, certainly.
Are you saying boredom that creates tremendous stress or puts the body into a near state of unconsciousness is not actionable in the workers' compensation system?
Well, certainly there are actionable stress claims in the workplace environment for hostile work environments. And if there were some way to establish that boredom was intentionally the source of the employee's death, and the employer wanted that to happen, then perhaps, but it seems rather extreme.
We can get the doctor on the phone. He said he would make himself available.
Oh, I think that's a very good idea. Seth, it's up to you wherever you want to stay on the line. We may have some questions, or you might have some questions for the doctor, because I really want to prove that this workplace death was caused by boredom.
Well, for certain in workers' compensation, we're going to need medical evidence that's going to establish that the workplace death was causally related to the workplace. So a medical opinion is critical, and I'd like to hear what the doctor has to say.
I think we actually have the doctor back east. This could be very prestigious. Let's patch him in. Do we have a doctor here? Who the hell are you anyways?
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming in.
Okay, yeah, I got a bit of consumption, but if you can hear me, that's okay.
Your voice is familiar.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting.
This is a strange coincidence. I think you may be my brother.
No, I don't think so.
I was a foreign correspondent in Nam, and you were in some type of combat there. That's where we met.
I've done a lot of things in country, but that's discussion for another time. You had a question for me?
Are you really Lemur Jr.?
You can call me Moonshine.
Oh, really? Are you now, or have you ever been a sysop of the Lemur Connection or Speakeasy Communication System?
I've been in a lot of different scenes throughout time.
Were you involved in reviewing any papers in connection with the death of a certain Hinata Orchid Helms?
I've kind of been following the narrative comes over the airwaves, and I think I've got the case in hand, yes.
Can you briefly state your medical qualifications? I'm not sure the audience believes you're an actual medical doctor.
Yeah, I am. I'm a clinical pathologist and board certified in clinical pathology. And I have my MD from Harvard Medical School.
I'm sorry to hear that. Anyone who'd send his son to Harvard is a fool. Isn't that what William Sidis said? But do these credentials qualify you to opine on the cause of death of a fictional character related by blood to Rhemus Helms, the most important man of Sun Valley?
Not really. But, I'm happy to answer your questions.
We've now called a pathologist for information on a very unusual case of boredom being the cause of death and not the failure of a bodily organ.
You are listening to the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. I really am a licensed attorney. I think the doctor on here really is a doctor. I do think I'm related by blood. Seth Krell really is a workers' compensation specialist. So as you can tell, I've gathered this panel of experts for this very unusual case of workplace death on talk radio, 790 KABC. So, Dr. Gerber, I presume, first question, do you think the fact Hanita Orchid Helms, that's H-O-H, was biologically related to Rhemus Helms might have contributed to the cause of death?
I don't really see the connection unless there was some sort of genetic disease in the family.
I'm investigating an employee death. I need to get to the bottom of why she died.
Well, yeah, did you do an autopsy?
The official cause of death was boredom.
Yeah, and how did they determine that? Were there lab tests and autopsy? How was it determined?
Well, I think, that's what we were hoping you'd help us out with. I don't know what's going on. This third-party workplace investigator emailed me 10 times. She came in here. She tells me about this case of workplace boredom. She tells me that you're some doctor involved in this, which apparently you're not. You're just listening on the radio.
Do you have information one way or the other whether Hanita Orchid Helms' cause of death was boredom? Her workplace was extraordinarily dull. The final incident was the doubling up of zeros when she was checking binary code. Yeah, that does sound very, very boring, and it is certainly conceivable that was the cause of death. It might also be important to note the exit door was blocked. How much longer do you think Hanita would have lasted, notwithstanding the fact that had the exit door opened, the staircase was concrete, the walls white, the air not moving?
Well, to the exit, was she going to immediately get out into sunlight, or was it more of the same?
It was more of the same. The stairs were concrete. The walls were white. There was no artwork in the stairwell or the landing. I don't know how long it would have taken her to get out. That's important in figuring this out.
In my opinion, that would not have made a difference then if the door were open, because she would have just kept going and going. It's like an endless corridor. That would have bored her too.
In the era of all electronic communications, are you seeing cases of employees or others dying of boredom? At Excise 0415, they avoided the use of paper. Paper can discolor, wrinkle, be different colors. Coffee can spill. Rustling paper causes sounds. Excise 0415 wanted to avoid all distractions in the workplace.
Well, yeah, it's going to make it more and more boring when you're just staring at a computer screen all day. I mean, paper, you could cut yourself, you could hit someone with it, even light it on fire. Computer, you don't have all those options. It's much more boring.
I got a question in all this. Why did Hanita voluntarily subject herself to such a dull environment?
She was a good person, a dear friend. When Starlight put the kibosh on the $10,000 a month one-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica due to her bad credit, the two roommates lacked housing.
I'm kind of interested in knowing if Hanita also lived in her car, but I want to tell the audience that I really am a real lawyer. I can be reached for real cases. I don't know about dying of boredom. My office is 877-525-0700. Once again, 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. And I'm not even Rhemus Helms. So tonight on the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show on, of course, Talk Radio, 790 KABC, we still have on the line Seth Krell, and we still have Dr. Georg Gerber. Molly, briefly, is there anything you want to add right now before we break?
No, not at this time.
Oh, no comment. No one even wants to comment on this boredom case. I hope nobody is bored because of this. It's unusual. I agree that I'm interested in hearing about things, but how someone could die of boredom in the workplace, I'm unclear, and we're trying to find out if there's a workers' comp angle on this, maybe. So we'll find out more when we come back.
Told us.
Since 1993, the Employment Lawyers Group has been a consistent force in fighting for the rights of California employees. They've represented thousands of employees in cases in which they've lost their jobs, been sexually harassed, discriminated against at work, or owed wages individually or as a group such as a class action. The Employment Lawyers Group has maintained a high win rate and a serious record before the California courts. Please call 877-525-0700 for an experienced work lawyer. That's 877-525-0700. They have call takers standing by. Online, research the firm at worklawyerca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. If you hire the Employment Lawyers Group, your legal problem becomes theirs to solve.
Hi, this is Peter Tilden, and I got to tell you, I've been promoting Natron's Healthy Trinity Probiotics on the radio for over a decade. They changed my life, my wife's life, many of our listeners' lives. They feel better, and you could too. Listen to what Dr. Chris Diadamo, the Director of Research at the Center for Integrative Medicine at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, has to say.
If you experience gas, bloating, indigestion, loose stool, or constipation, this is not something that you just have to deal with. But I was actually introduced to Natron Probiotics for my own personal use. I had been suffering from persistent indigestion, and nothing I had tried had really helped me until I tried Natron Probiotics. Natron Probiotics provide sustained relief and greatly improved my quality of life to this day, just as they have for countless people across the world. I'm a real believer in the power of Natron Probiotics, and as a result, I recommend them to literally everybody. If your probiotic doesn't say Natron on the label, you'll never feel the Natron difference.
Others promise, Natron delivers, except no substitute. Go to natron.com or the probiotic cooler section at Whole Foods, Sprouts, or your favorite health food store.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations. Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum handmade pan pizzas will be extra asked for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's hotspots.
Have you tried that trendy new dating app? You can have months of frivolous fun with people who just love to play games. But if you're ready for something more grown-up, try the Match app. Over 30,000 new people a day are heading to Match for grown-up conversations that lead to great dates and beyond. Our listeners that go to Match.com can start for free today. View photos and informative profiles to get a deeper sense of the people you'd like to meet. Start for free today at Match.com. That's Match.com.
Only the good die young. Talk Radio 790 KABC. You're listening to the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. I'm a real employee lawyer. We have a third-party workplace investigator with us tonight in studio. We've got a clinical pathologist on the phone, a workers' compensation specialist. We're trying to figure out how in the world it is that Rhemus Helms' daughter accepted an exceptionally boring job and possibly died of boredom. And I think we got to ask Mr. Krell. Mr. Krell, do you have a quick question for Dr. Gerber on this?
Yeah, I think Dr. Gerber could really help us out to establish if she died of boredom if he was given the proper evidence. And I'm wondering what type of evidence would he need to come to a reasonable medical opinion regarding the cause of death?
That's a great question. Can you answer it?
Well, something like this would not be a sudden death. There have certainly been medical reports of people dying of boredom, and what it is really a stress-related condition that over time increases your risks of things like heart attack and other chronic diseases.
I'm smelling maybe that there's a stress claim out there.
So her deposition testimony and workplace testimony from her coworkers that it was a dull overall job might be enough for you to tell us.
That's not going to be a problem.
It might be enough.
But how do you deal with this if the worker is now deceased? You can't get her deposition.
Yeah, well, you get the deposition of the coworkers and obviously the autopsy report. And if it's a big enough company, it sounds like it is, and everyone's doing the same thing, I think you'd establish boredom just by the circumstantial evidence in and of itself.
That sounds quite reasonable. I have a question, Molly, investigator here, Molly Machete. Did Hanita live in her car or not? I'm not clear because Starlight, her roommate, came on last show and said she did. Maybe this is going to help us figure out how she died.
I'm not read. Oh, there we go. That was one of the issues. No, she did not reside in a motor vehicle. She found motels from Inglewood and South. XI0415 is in Irvine, a staple of boredom. Yeah. Hinata was considering moving somewhere closer to XI0415 in a less dull part of Orange County, if there is such a place. But in the meantime, she was shacking up in nondescript motels, places that were all asphalt, probably built in the 60s or 70s without any hint of architecture. In-room air conditioning units, white bathtubs, motel art. Not the type of motel artwork you see as seen on color TV. I personally want to buy the Diva model in Phase 2, 1,000 square feet master closets complete with makeup tables, studio lighting. I want to be more glamorous in my retirement.
Hey, I had a couple questions. Molly, are you getting on Phase 2? But I'm also wondering if this motel life in the drab asphalt jungle, boring box structures could have also contributed to this death. And if that's the case, do we run into one of these rules in workers' comp, and I want Mr. Crow to think about this, where the cause of death could be boredom outside the workplace, maybe even 51%?
Well, that is the burden that the injured worker's family, dependents, in the case of workers' comp, are going to have to carry. And if they don't carry their burden of more than 51%, if the outside of work, non-industrial factors, as employers like to point out, are going to be more likely than not, as with a 50% standard, then you wouldn't carry your burden of proof and you'd lose. So that wouldn't be evidence that would be helpful to us.
I don't think that motel life was too long. But Molly, are you getting on Phase 2 as seen on color TV? We heard about in other episodes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm hoping to. Why do you think I've billed $187,210 and no cents in this workplace investigation?
Who hired you to do this investigation anyway? It better be the Helms, because we're giving all this advice like this is an employee.
Rhemus is furious with Starlight. He blames all of this on her. Is this confidential?
Are you kidding? We have more listeners and followers and people streaming this crap tonight and later. Maybe more people than Rhemus Helms had sex partners, if you can believe that.
I'm a double agent.
Must you make these confessions on live air and get me all caught up in political drama?
My days of government service have long since passed.
If you're looking for legal advice because you pretended to do this investigation for both the company and the Helms family, I'm utterly disgusted.
I also billed XI0415 $571,021 for the investigation.
How could you possibly be a neutral third party if you charge either party that much?
You don't really think any investigator that any company ever hires is a neutral third-party investigator, do you? No. The purpose of hiring somebody like me is the company pretends they acted, pretended they really wanted to know what happened.
I wonder if we're getting false lab tests here. Is there like a hidden agenda here because we want to make Nina look like she died of boredom? Were drugs involved, maybe? This is going to be the first case of death by boredom if we don't figure that one out. I've got another question. Is there a possibility, and this is to the doctor, do you think Hinata can be resurrected? I might want to pursue her further as a character.
Well, you know what Siegfried and Roy once said to me, and that is all things are possible. So I'm not going to rule that out. But, you know, you raise interesting issues as to whether there would be lab tests. And, you know, with this kind of cause of death, ultimately you got to do a rule out, which means you'd have to rule out a lot of other common causes of death, like drugs and alcohol, etc.
Are there any actual cases of death by boredom in the workplace?
Well, you know, there's been several studies. There have been long-term epidemiological studies about people with boring professions, and it actually does. It's about a 2 times increase chance of death, early death, things like heart attack, et cetera, which is as much as diabetes and things like that. And you know what they say? The worst jobs are boring and stressful. So something like you have to monitor a plunger that's going to come down and, hit something at high velocity, but you have to just sit there at a very boring computer monitoring that day in and day out. That's kind of the worst, stressful and boring.
I read an article, it was in Psychology Today. I don't know how valid it was, but I think it was saying that government workers have very high rates of heart attacks, and it may be attributable to boredom.
They do, and those jobs are often considered very tedious and also can be stressful. Things like the hierarchy, performance standards, things like that, very high stress and very dull.
Molly, is there anything at all in this report suggesting drug use by Hinata?
There was no hint of drug use.
Okay.
Her coworkers couldn't understand what she was saying, but they could see that she was not using drugs.
Yeah, I don't think Rhemus Helms would use drugs either. That's just not really a Helms thing. They're weird enough, and they don't need drugs. They're like Frank Zappa. But so we've got the boring motel. I don't know how long that was going on for. I don't really think that long, because this whole thing with the Nouvelle Vague novelty toys and the job didn't work out. I don't think that was that long. I mean, could 2 months of living in a boring hotel really get this woman that bored and stressed out? I don't know.
Was she commuting? I mean, how far away? This was the company was Irvine. Where was she coming from?
That's the thing. It sounds like she was Inglewood and South, so there is a commute. If it was the 5, I think that's really, going down the 5 is very boring. I've been down there to go to the Orange County courts. I don't like the architecture at all. The Citadel is the only thing, but it's a very boring commute, I would think. It's just
that's very boring and stressful, being in a long commute.
But, is this going to be that much that we get over this hurdle that if this is a stress claim or whatever work, it can't be 50% causation through outside factors?
In some situations, I just want to point out, if we have, and there's a death here, if you're a victim of a violent act or a direct exposure to a significant violent act, then the standard's even lower, maybe 35 to 40%.
What about a extreme non-act? Because in this situation, it seems like there was a lot of non-action at this job.
Well, looking at Labor Code section.
We can't hear anything.
Oh, he went away.
We can't hear anything. This is crazy. It's like we've been bored to death. We can't hear anything. We're in a studio. We're talking about No Exit, which is some existential play. And now I'm sitting here in the studio. And I don't hear anything in the earphones. I don't know if Seth Krell's on the phone. I don't know if Dr. Gerber is. I don't know if I don't know what's going on. I do know that I'm Karl Gerber, workplace lawyer. Is anyone here anymore with me?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello?
Oh, it's Seth Krell. I don't know if he's here. Okay, look, guys, I think we're going to have to continue this because this is a very interesting case of death by boredom, and it's a workplace situation that I really hope no one ever has to experience. But if they do, maybe Seth Krell should hear about it. Maybe he needs the workers' comp case. I'm Karl Gerber. This is the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. It's heard every Sunday night from 7 to 8, and my goal is not to bore you, if you haven't figured that out by now. I don't think it's fair to make people listen to a show for an hour is just boring. And this is not really how law practice always operates, but these are skills that can be used in writing motions and doing trials. And it is definitely helpful if you can make up these scenarios and get people listening. If you have a real workplace scenario like a job termination, sexual harassment, unpaid wages, hopefully a class action, I'd like to hear about it off air at 877-525-0700. Once again, that's 877-525-0700, 877-525-0700. Listen online. We're all over the place. This week on FM Player, I believe it's a big share site. We've moved up to the best of the workplace broadcasts. See you next Sunday, people. Thanks for listening.
This show furnished by Karl Gerber and Employment Lawyers Group.